Hey, it's me, the ice cream man. I know that I am something that can help you beat the heat, but I'm not always going to be around to give you sweet and tasty treats. What's something that could help you beat the heat? Studies don't show, but it can't hurt. You could listen to an episode of this podcast. Before we continue my first ever journey through the Harry Potter series, just a few quick announcements. Hello, hi, it's been a minute. Happy to be here. We've got a fun episode for you today that is coming from an old show that I did in Salt Lake City, Utah with Kim from Fanatical Fics. But let's talk about some updates real quick with stuff. There is a Potterless live show on the horizon. We are finally making the long faded New Orleans show happen. The New Orleans show was supposed to kick off the 2020 Potterless tour. Ha 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 ha. It was going to be in April of 2020. Ha 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 ha. But I will be in New Orleans, Louisiana on October 24th for a half Potterless, half the New Olympian show. The New Olympian is my new Percy Jackson podcast. So you will get at least one act of Harry Potter goofiness in New Orleans on October 24th. I will say the venue is quite small. So if you want to make sure you secure your tickets, head on over to potterlesspodcast.com/live. And then if you are interested in seeing Percy Jackson live content, I have a whole bunch of Percy Jackson live shows coming up throughout August and beyond. Berkeley, California, Nashville, Tennessee, Atlanta, Georgia, New York City, Vienna, Virginia, which is close to Washington, D.C., Toronto, Ontario, Boston, Massachusetts, that New Orleans show, Dallas, Texas, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You can get tickets to all of those at my personal website. It's schub.es/tour. So you can check that out if you want to hear me talking about Percy Jackson stuff live. If you're not listening to the New Olympian, it's a very good Percy Jackson podcast that is a very similar structure to Potterless. I think you'll enjoy it. I post that every Monday, so go check that out. But let's talk about what's happening here. This is from that live show that I mentioned in Salt Lake City. I was joined by Kim from Fanatical Fics, and it was the second act of the show, so we kind of start like right in the swing of things. There will be a little bit of Q&A at the end as well. We did a deep dive into Ludo Bagman fan fiction, and it was a very fun time. So without further ado, I will let you listen to that wonderful audio, and then make sure you stay tuned for the mid-roll break, talking about some other fun stuff, and there's a little bonus surprise at the end of this episode as well. But please enjoy this episode of Potterless, where Kim Harris and I recap our top 5 favorite Ludo Bagman fan fictions live in Salt Lake City, Utah. Just kidding. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Potterless Live. Give a shout out to Mike Schubert from the New Olympian. What a great opening act he was. So we are here today to do some Potterless stuff, and it's going to be very fun and silly. And it's just the perfect stars aligning moment where, you know, I've never really done a true deep dive into any sort of Ludo Bagman fan fiction at all, aside from thinking he was important on my podcast. So, of course, had to bring in a resident fan fiction expert. So please give a warm welcome to Kim Harris from Fanatical Fics and Where to Find Them. Kim, welcome to the stage.
What's up, Salt Lake City?
Salt Lake City's own Kim Harris. How's it going to be here in your hometown, or at least where you live?
Oh yeah. It's a little smoky.
So I was very excited to do this with you, to just try to go over the best Ludo Bagman fanfics, and it was funny just trying to search them because we were spitballing the ideas for what we would do for the show, and I remember saying like, yeah, we'll just find like our top 5 each, like most ridiculous Ludo Bagman fanfics, and then I did text you after I did a little more research, like 5 might be a stretch, when I learned that which of the 2 websites said 30 results.
It was fanfiction.net. Yeah, I was like, you texted me and you were like, I want to do Ludo Bagman fanfiction. I was like, that'll be fine, probably. We could probably find some.
For context, if I was to search like a main character, like how many?
I mean, there's over 100,000 just like on fanfiction.net. So
yeah, 30.
Yeah, 30 was like, I was like, this will be fine, probably. We'll read the same 30 fanfictions and then we'll talk about the same 5.
Right. We'll see if our top 5s are identical, because I had the fun thing of first having a tough time finding Ludo fanfiction in the first place. And then I had a tough time finding Ludo Bagman fanfiction that didn't involve him making love to a child.
Woo!
And not even like, oh, it's a pretend world where Harry's 18.
You don't click on those. Come on, Mike.
I didn't know.
You're scrolling, you see the tags, and you just do not perceive. You see the bad tags, and you go, okay, yeah, never mind. I don't want that. No,
I should have like workshopped a little more ahead of time because I didn't know that like tags were something to read before clicking because you would click and then it would talk about the content and like an official like thing that you could click for content, like the equivalent of a hashtag. There was one that was just called underage sex, and I was like,
yeah, you don't click on those, Mike. Come on.
No, I didn't.
I mean, not to yuck anyone's yums, but there is fan fiction that you choose not to perceive.
So all of those I quickly closed the tabs of and didn't read anything further, especially when things are at the top that are like, in this fan fiction, Ludo is 30 and Harry's 14. And I was like, Command W, get out of here.
Mike, please.
So instead,
protect your eyeballs.
I have other Ludo fan fiction that is not sexual in any nature at all. It's all great and good and wonderful and fun.
But I got some sex stuff.
Okay, good. I figured you would. I figured you would at least be better at navigating, but I was just like, anything raunchy, I can't do this. So I will give you the floor first for your number 5 Ludo fan fiction.
All right, yeah. So I'm from Fanatical Fics. We do read and reacts to Harry Potter fan fiction written about the time period that the books came out. So I, of course, went to fanfiction.net, our old friend, and I went to the oldest Ludo Bagman fanfictions. The oldest one.
The finest ones that have aged like a fine Merlot.
What were people talking about Ludo Bagman back in 2006? I wonder. So actually, I was expecting to see more from like the book 4 kind of era, and I was very surprised. The first one was from 2006, and that's the first one on my list here. It's the earliest one on fanfiction.net that was correctly tagged with Ludo Bagman. Maybe there's some floating out there that weren't tagged well. But this one, Ludo Bagman is surrounded by goblins. They've caught up to him. He was on the run, you know. They've caught up to him, and they're like about to jump him, and somebody appears in front of him and saves him by murdering all the goblins.
Oh.
And then...
Is it the protagonist from the new Goblin Killer Harry Potter game that's coming out?
Oh, God, the what?
Oh, have you not heard about the game?
I do not interact with Harry Potter anymore.
Just Harry Potter fanfiction.
Just Harry Potter fanfiction from 2008.
It's funny because the new video game that's coming out, it's a prequel game.
Okay.
And it's like set in like the 1930s and 40s.
It's about goblin murdering?
So what's fun is I already wasn't going to do this game because I was like, I don't want to give any money or notoriety towards J.K. Rowling.
Sure.
Because the game was announced after her fun thing
on
Twitter. I was already not going to do it. But a lot of people were like, but the game looks really good and the developers work really hard. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. But also, I just can't do it. But then they released like trailers about what it's about. And what it's about is that there's like an invasion of goblins because they're stealing children.
Oh.
So like just to add more Jewish tropes onto the anti-Semitic stereotypes. And it takes place in like the 1940s. So it's a game about killing Jewish stereotype characters in the 1940s? Oh, like, you had one job. Like, hi, J.K. Rowling's Art of the Worst. Just don't make this game even worse. And the game developers are like, hold my beer, please.
Oh my God.
It's so bad. So anyway, not playing that game.
Hey, Editing Mike here with a correction for past Mike. Turns out when you intentionally try to avoid learning about something, you don't get the information about it correct when you're discussing it. The Hogwarts Legacy game actually, apparently, according to the internet, takes place in 1890. So not as bad as it could have been. I still think the tropes that they have employed here for the goblins is bad. I think it was very unnecessary. You could have had other bad guys that got eradicated or whatever. But all this is to say that it could have been worse. It's still bad. It's not as bad as I thought it was, though. Let's get back into the episode.
This story was not about that because it was written in 2006. So Ludo passes out due to blood loss or whatever, wakes up in St. Mungo's, and we do not figure out who saved him.
Cool.
Somebody's like, oh, yeah, good job murdering all those goblins. And he's like, I didn't, but that's cool, too. And that's the end of this fan fiction. Just kind of peters off. There's an author's note at the end that's like, I might continue this. They didn't.
Oh.
They didn't.
And that's 5th best. So my number 5 is actually part of a 3-part Ludo Bagman trilogy.
A trilogy?
It's a trilogy from, the author's name is Bellatrix the Strange, but the L's are 1s. Did you read any of these?
No, I don't think I did.
Great. So I'm kind of tying them all, but they do have somewhat of like a sequential order. So I will do number 5, and this is from fanfiction.net.
Whole trilogy. So our podcast, we generally stick to like one shot, so like 5,000 words or less. So I like trade in these like, here's a cool premise, and then nothing else. Harry's got a new prophecy.
And I, as someone who didn't want to do a ton of work for half of a show,
when I saw ones that were long.
Well, it was like 2,000 words. I was like, that's easy. I can do it. So it was fine.
Nice.
But I did click on one that had Ludo Bagman, and it was like 20,000 words, and I was like, that's too long, sir. Anyway, this one is called Tenix Tristis.
Okay.
I believe, and it's Tenix Tristis dash a bad luck potion. So the sub little preview of it says Ludo Bagman has managed to hide many things from his Muggle wife.
Muggle wife? Awesome!
Including magic, his gambling debt, and his intense fear of pumpkins.
Oh, I feel like you should maybe talk about at least one of those things, but my dear wife. Deadly afraid of pumpkins.
I don't know. I dislike pumpkin-flavored things, but I'm not deathly afraid of them. But we'll learn why. So, it's the fall, and Ludo Bagman is sipping on a stout. And he thinks about his past life in the wizarding world. He's in debt, of course. And he's in hiding, of course. He's basically in witness protection.
Oh.
So he is...
Did he turn over on the goblin mob?
I mean, yeah, he's basically just trying to hide from the goblins and stuff. So he's decided that he's going to live in this Muggle town, and he's going to work as a handyman for Muggles. But instead of like actually applying himself, he just uses magic secretly, and everyone's like,
I'm surprised that why don't wizards just do that?
Yeah, just retire and have the easiest job. I mean, that'd be pretty good. So he's a handyman, and everyone thinks he's fantastic. Here's a quote from the book. Quote, even though he stopped gambling when he skipped town, he still won a different kind of jackpot, his wife Eleanor.
Oh.
She was a lot of things. Beautiful, spontaneous, intelligent, sarcastic, raunchy.
Uh-oh.
And most importantly, gullible. I know. Feels kind of cruel. So they met when he was doing a handyman job for her. They kind of hit it off. They got married pretty quickly. Just all this spontaneous relationship. And now here's the scene. Eleanor has returned from the grocery store. It's not clear what time of day or what day of the week it is. I think she's coming home after work. Who's to say? Ludo makes sure that there's no magic afoot, but she comes back, and part of her grocery haul includes a pumpkin, which terrifies Ludo. So we have a flashback. So he finds...
It got a lot of tildes and
Yeah, and it definitely had some sort of characters where clearly it was from either a Wingdings font or a different language, because I was like, I don't know what this is, but it's not just your classic squigglies.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So he, in the past, is going through the woods and finds a pumpkin, and it's big and nice, so he just decides to steal it and make pumpkin pie. I don't know. Pumpkin's one of those plants where, if I saw it in the woods, I would not be like, I can take this. I'd be like, this is someone's pumpkin. I can't just pick a berry off or whatever. My other fear when I'm hiking, where I'm like, this is clearly poisonous. I can't eat this. So he decides.
Is it a pumpkin or poison?
I don't know, man. That's why I love to go. One of my buddies, he got his master's in some sort of forestry. He's the best person to go hiking with, because he can be like, you can eat that, you can wipe your butt with that, don't touch that. Great person to go on a hike with. If you're ever near Jordan Bunch in Seattle, can't recommend it enough to go on a hike with Jordan. So he takes the pumpkin, because pumpkin is one of his favorite treats, and he's going to make it into pumpkin pie, one of his favorite desserts. But as he eats it, he feels this immense loneliness inside. And it's this void that nothing can fill. So he eats more slices, and it only gets worse. Then he goes on this renegade lifestyle where drugs, booze, and sex can't fill this void in his life. And that's what had him turn to gambling, because that is the one thing where he can finally feel something. So he bet his entire vault's worth on a local Quidditch match just to feel something, and he won. But it would be his last win. His first gambling win is his last. Now he realizes that gambling to repay a debt doesn't have the same rush as gambling to win, so he needs a new rush, hiding amongst muggles and not getting discovered.
What a rush.
So now we're back from the flashback. His only answer to her pumpkin of why he doesn't want it is he says pumpkins are very bad luck, and she thinks he's being silly. Now, he secretly does some sort of magic to make it explode, and she gets very upset. And her ability...
Oh no, I bought an exploding pumpkin!
Well, she thinks that it's his fault, and she notes bad things always happen to you.
Oh,
So she
okay.
doesn't think that it's magic afoot, but she is upset. Now, he thinks that her emotions quickly switching is fun. It like gives him a rush of like her being unpredictable.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Come on, bud.
Yeah. Now, he says, quote, as far as he was aware, her anger was always unprovoked. At least that's what he thought. Dun, dun, dun. So here's what we learned from the narrator, is that it wasn't the pumpkin's fault that he had this void. It's that the water that kind of fed into where the pumpkin was planted was contaminated with Tenax tristis, which I could tell is just Latin opposite Felix Felicis. And I'm glad I have this platform to talk about how
Awesome.
Felix Felicis, because I did take
Right,
Latin in
sure.
high school, Felix Felicis
Glad we could get that in here.
Got it. I'm contractually obligated to, otherwise, I'll get destroyed by editing Mike. But Felix Felicis is just Latin for lucky lucky or happy happy. And in Latin, there's this thing called declensions. So if you have a noun or an adjective, you'll have different like kind of like how a verb has conjugations, but you'll have like different parts where you can use it. I don't know if this is in other languages or just Latin because I've only taken Latin, but like you'll have things where you'll have the nominative thing. So if you're going to be like, if you were going to say someone was the lucky someone, you would be like, oh, Kim Felix would be lucky Kim. But then Felicis is from the genitive case, which is the way you would say of. So if you were saying like, that's lucky Kim's shoes, you would say like, Kim Felicis shoes. So Felix Felicis, and the way you do it is nominative genitive. It's just the first two things in the noun declension for the word that means lucky. So J.K. Rowling Googled
Opened a
the
dictionary.
yeah, she
Sure,
either
sure.
opened that or Googled like what's the Latin word for lucky, and then saw the noun declension and it just said Felix Felicis. Sounds good. It's so bad. It's so bad. So if you just go on like Google Translate and you find the opposite of Felix Felicis, it's Tenax tristis, which basically just means like tenacious sad or like troublesome unlucky.
Okay.
So that potion apparently, which is not actually in the books, that potion is what made him have this bad luck. That's why he keeps losing all these gambling
This
debts,
is the
and
kind
it's
of
also
stuff
made him sad.
I was hoping to find. I didn't find any like in-depth backstories for Ludo Bagman and his bad luck.
I found all sad Ludo Bagman stories.
Oh,
It's all
man.
Ludo Sadman for me.
Yikes!
Now,
This is a cool backstory. I really like that.
it's
You've
kinda
got some really
fun.
cool stuff, Mike.
thank you. So that's why he has this big void. And then the narrator just says that like he still lives under these effects. Soon he will break the statute of secrecy.
Tragic.
Because
What?
this life is not going to bring him any more rush. And she gets so mad and she leaves and he thinks, oh, she's not really upset. But little does he know she's just walking out on him. And that's the end of the first Ludo Bagman trilogy story I found.
Wow. Gosh.
It doesn't get less sad.
Oh man. Uh-oh. No wait. I got a sad one
Cool.
here.
Here, let's hear it.
All right. So my next one was a scary story.
Ooh.
I haven't found a ton of like scary stories in the stuff that I usually look for because we do the jokes or whatever.
Sure.
So this was like a really like tension building, notching up. Ludo's on the run and he's hiding out in this like really decrepit, scary house, and there's noises and there's wind and the tension's building and building, and suddenly there's a presence in the room with him, and he goes and he grabs an iron poker and he stabs a fan of his who was trying to help.
Oh.
And I was like, this is some great horror. Oh God, Ludo, no!
Where was this location Like where?
Which website did I
No,
find
sorry.
this
Where,
on?
where were the
Oh.
characters when the stabbing took place?
In the spooky haunted house.
Okay.
He was scared. He was on the run, and he just like stabbed the ghost. No, it wasn't a ghost. It was a lady. Oops. Yikes.
Oh no. Then that's it? Just
Yeah,
stabbed her
and
in
he's
the
like,
yeah.
well, I killed that person, so I guess I gotta run.
I was half
Sorry.
I was half expecting you to say that this was actually like it's Hamlet, right? Where he stabs what does he stab his dad behind a curtain or whatever, right? Is that what right? Is that what happens in Hamlet? Right?
Sure.
Nobody's read Hamlet? Are you guys a bunch of nerds? It's his uncle. He stabs his uncle who's hiding behind like a thing where he's sneaking on him. Right. We'll talk about this
right.
when I do Shakespeare podcast. Okay, my next one I will also say is very short because it was like long, but it wasn't very interesting. Basically, Ludo now, so this picks up where the other one left off because it's part of the trilogy.
Oh, this is still a trilogy. Awesome.
Still the
Part
trilogy.
two.
Part two. This
Now,
is
are these really in the order that you liked them?
no. I
Okay.
just
I
had
want
to
a
put
ranking at
these
the end.
three. I had to put these three together. We can re-rank my 5, 4, 3s, but for the chronology. I had to do it. So he has now left his wife, but he is in Australia now.
Okay.
Because he got found out.
Sure. Australia, that's where the rush is, you know, all the animals trying to kill you.
Yeah,
that's
just
in Australia, right?
A more exciting life. So he meets a peculiar man in a bar. So he's in an Australian muggle bar, and he's self-transfigured himself just in case some Aurors are on the lookout for him, because now goblins are after him, Aurors are after him, whole bunch of stuff. So it's revealed that the way he got caught in England, he was caught by Eleanor, his wife, just catching him levitating objects around the house. So I guess they like made up, but then he did that, and then she just got very upset, went like told people about it.
Everything about you from me.
Yeah, so then he came back one day and all the bags were packed and she was like, I'm leaving. And then he wiped her memory and then he fled town. But like word still got out, so now Aurors are potentially after him.
All right.
Now, he's at this bar and a British man sits next to him, so he's kind of worried that it could be like an Auror in disguise. Ludo. So he gives him a fake name and he's having this like conversation. The person says his name is Wilkins, but Ludo is like, oh, this feels like he's giving me a fake name. But Ludo's like, well, I should talk this guy up, so I should know if I should leave like immediately, if this is a person I should look out for. So they kind of talk a little bit. Ludo gives a fake name of Leo Wilson, and then the guy reveals that it's a decent fake name.
Okay.
The guy reveals his name is Wendell, so he's Wendell Wilkins.
Oh, wait, that's a name.
Is that
a name we know? Wendell Wilkins? Did he explode toilets? Is that someone else?
Yeah.
Oh,
whoa.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Didn't know that. Now.
Whew. One or two Harry Potter things up here rattling around.
So they're talking a little bit about their they have like small talk.
Okay.
I forget, like one of them they have a wife. Basically, Ludo reveals that he used to have one. Wendell reveals him and his wife are in like a struggling, troublesome situation because they recently moved to Australia, but they can't remember why. And I was like, Hermione's parents? Are you kidding me?
God.
And that's basically what it is. Like they talk more and more, and Wendell says he's like, they're both hazy about their past, and they can't remember why they moved, and it caused them to have a lot of arguments. Like Wendell thinks that something happened to them and something nefarious, and his wife thinks that they just like tried to rekindle the sparks and moved to Australia and it failed. So they're having like real troubles at home. Wow. And Ludo feels bad for him, and Ludo's like, oh, how about I kind of like level with this guy. I'll just tell him I'm a wizard and I know this kind of thing, so maybe I can help him.
Don't do it, Ludo.
So he does, and then basically this guy's like, oh, you have the power to... Do you have the power as a wizard to like make people forget? And Ludo's like, yeah, but I can also try to help you remember. And this Wendell guy goes, all right, did you do this to your wife? And Ludo doesn't answer. And Wendell's like, that's an answer enough for me. And he's like, get out of my face. I don't want to deal with you. And Ludo's like, no, you can trust me. He's like, how could I ever trust you? In the conversation, we'd learned that like Wendell like gets drunk and like writes things down that come to his brain. So he had written like HJG in his book.
This is the coolest lore? What is this?
So like he had written HJG because that's like Hermione's dad's actual initials. He apparently had like drawn like an image of an orange cat. And then Ludo asks if he has kids, and he's like, I feel like I have a daughter, but I can't remember. So after all this is when he levels with him, but the guy's like, get out of here. And once this guy's starting to get like really agitated, the barkeeper comes over, is like, is everything okay? And they're like, yeah, it's fine. And he goes away. And then Ludo has to obliviate him as well so that the word doesn't get out.
What a tangled web you weave, Ludo.
And then the guy just like kind of snaps back to as if when he first sat at the bar, and Ludo's like, oh, I could kind of like restart. He's like, but nah, this is just going to be bad. So he just leaves.
There's no way I can navigate this conversation successfully. I will go.
And that's the end of that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang. That's awesome. Okay. Let's see. The next one on my list. Oh, hell yeah. Lavender Brown is climbing the social ladder after graduating from Hogwarts.
I'm so glad you said after graduating from Hogwarts.
After graduating from Hogwarts. She's a few years out, and she has decided that her next step up the ladder is Ludo Bagman.
Like romantically, or just like to use his...
To use his,
fame?
Cool. I guess. His position at the ministry that he left in disgrace.
I was going to say, there's no way he still has that job, right?
Right? Lavender, you can do better than this, bud. But then it turns out that he's really hot.
Oh, okay.
Hey,
cool that Lavender's alive, though. Yeah. That question got answered.
She did survive. Poor Lavender. So yeah, Ludo's really hot in this, which like I am here for.
Sure, yeah.
This author looked at Ludo Bagman with his dad bod and his I have sports injuries or whatever, and they were like hot and also really good at sex.
Okay.
And Lavender's like, oh, I was just using you to climb the social ladder, but I think I'm in love now. Oh. No? Not aw? Not cute? All right. I was like, good for you, author. Yeah, Ludo Bagman's hot today. It was like a lot of description about how hot Ludo was, and I was confused, but there for them.
All right. Very fun. Lavender and Ludo. Who'da thunk it?
Those two crazy kids.
So here's the third part in the Ludo trilogy. This one is called Leprechaun Gold. So this one, the little preview is when Ludo discovers a gambling opportunity at a local theme park. Local theme park? They got theme parks in the magical world? He is determined to strike gold. Still in deep debt, he uses a polyjuice disguise to avoid confrontation. What could go wrong? And I wrote in my notes, everything.
Yeah, gotta be.
So apparently he's just like back in England at a magical theme park.
He just gave up on the being on the run thing?
I don't know, maybe Australia went even worse.
Remembered that polyjuice was a thing he could use?
Yeah, this one felt the least of the trilogy.
Oh, okay.
It didn't feel very linked, but it was by the same author, and I felt like I gotta give it to her. So Ludo is polyjuiced up. He's at this local theme park that apparently has a casino tent, because you know how theme parks are also casinos.
They've got the arcade usually. That's basically a casino.
Yeah. So he had been planning this for a while. I don't know. We don't really learn like what this big heist that he's got going on is, but he meets this girl named Vera, and she's like very provocative and like really flirting with him. There's like a line to get into the casino, so she asks him, "You think you'll get lucky tonight?" And as grossly as possible, Ludo says, "Isn't that up to you?"
Oh, yikes! Anything but this.
Hate it. But yeah, they're doing like lots of flirting back and forth. Basically, she's like, "Why don't we just like grab a drink at a bar?" And Ludo kind of looks at the line because he knows like the polyjuice is gonna wear out. / someone might suspect me if I'm gambling and stuff. So he's like, screw it. She's really cute. And then she like starts to kiss him and he's like, yeah, let's definitely not stay here anymore. So they go to a bar, and then when they sit down, the bartender comes up to Vera and goes like, "What'll it be, gorgeous?" And Ludo gets very jealous at this guy. He does end up catching a glimpse of his polyjuice self, and he realizes, oh, this random muggle's hair who I stole is like really hot. But then Ludo gets self-conscious, like, am I not hot? Is it only because, like, is it not the personality? Is it just because my polyjuice disguise is good? So they're like going back and forth more. They're like talking, and they're like getting along really well personality-wise, and he loses track of time. And then his like fingers start to tingle. He's like, oh no, the polyjuice is wearing off. So he's like tries to find an excuse to get out of there, but then she like brings him in for a kiss.
Oh no.
And then he's like groaning in like panic, but she thinks it's like different groaning. So she like ramps it up, and he's like, oh no. And then like when she finally like pulls her head away, she sees that he's a different person, and she justifiably freaks out on him. And then it makes a whole big scene. It does note that Dave the bartender had a smirk while this is all happening, which I was like, hell yeah, Dave the bartender.
I feel like in the books, the polyjuice transformation is pretty body horror gross.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like,
surprised you wouldn't notice that while macking on someone. Hey, is your tongue changing shape?
So Vera's like very disappointed, very upset, and she's just like says, leave, get out of here, I don't want to see you. And there's actually great writing by the narrator. Kind of ends it with like the self-reflection of Ludo, that like he realizes that he accidentally pulled his favorite bait and switch, which was to bet on people with leprechaun gold and then leave before they could realize it. And he was like, oh, people want gold, and then all they get stuck with is leprechaun gold. That's what I just did.
That's
like,
a great
and it was like
for a bit. Oh, I love that. I love when a fan fiction's like, I'm gonna write a bit. I've got the bit at the end figured out. Fool's gold, and then they write the rest of it to fit the bit. Oh, that's a great premise.
It's pretty good. And then he like wants to linger around to try to talk to her, to be like, no, like I'm still me as a person, blah blah blah, but he realizes it'll make him too sad, so he vanishes just like the leprechaun gold into the night. And that's the end of the trilogy.
That's awesome. I think these like in-depth character studies of Ludo are so interesting.
It's fun.
There's so
I like
few of them, and he's a really interesting character to dive into, I think.
Yeah.
He's got some
You
stuff
don't have to
going
tell
on.
me.
Okay, all right. I think Ludo's really interesting, right?
Yeah.
I think he probably did.
No, but seriously, what were you saying though? Like, I agree. Like, I think
he's
it's
great.
deep.
I think it's a cool character to hook into for fan fiction, because he's not really explored in the stories beyond just like a plot device and a red herring kind of thing. And completely gone in the movies. So
Yep.
I think he's an interesting person, and it's sad there's only 30 on FF. I was sad to see
Yeah.
it.
Let's get more. This is a PSA. Make more Ludo Bagman fanfics. All right, what do you have
All right,
for
where
number
was
2?
I? Okay, this one. Woof. Okay, so we're in some shade of AU, and the way I could tell that will become apparent later, the AU alternate universe from the canon. So after the loss of the love of her life, Eileen Prince Snape has sworn to never love again.
Oh. Okay.
Snape's mom, in case you didn't remember.
Ludo
But-
Bagman is Snape's stepdad. Let's go. That's great. The perfect punishment.
Ludo Bagman romances her relentlessly. And she's like, no, I'll never love again. But what if? But no, I'll never love again. And then he has a heart attack scare, and she realizes that she's in love and she can't live without him. Ludo Bagman and her, Snape's mom.
Is this like in the past when he's like Quidditch hotshot Ludo
Nope.
Bagman, or this is
Nope,
like post?
Snape is an adult in this
Oh,
story.
cool.
So we've got some background. Snape is living a happy life in this story. He is
Go.
headmaster of Hogwarts, married with
Why?
a kid on the way. Yeah. Just in the background, throwaway line. Snape's the headmaster. He's married. To who? Don't know. Someone.
Ugh.
You know.
I don't like that at all.
We're in an alternate universe. Maybe he's nice.
Yeah, I guess.
He's not. He still sucks.
Maybe he's not a 40-year-old beefing with teens. Ugh.
But we're still gonna get back at him because his mom's gonna marry Ludo. So she realizes she's in love with Ludo Bagman, and they get married on a Quidditch pitch in the nude for some reason, following the Betazoid tradition, right? Betazoid? Thank you.
What is?
Making Star Trek references on your Harry
Oh.
Potter podcast,
Good.
Mike.
Hey, they some people in the
I
crowd
got
for
what,
sure. That's all you need.
So yeah, they get married in the nude, and
Cool.
then they do a victory lap on their brooms in the nude,
Of course.
and then they disapparate to their honeymoon. And I was like, this is all gold. This is hilarious. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad that you found the wild stuff, because since I only found the sad, serious
You
things.
just gotta go to the old stuff. That's where the good stuff is.
Okay, so this one, my number 2, is called Unlucky Ludo. And this is by Accio Broom, who wrote the story for the previous author. Wrote it for Bellatrix the Strange, but the elves are ones.
Okay.
Wrote it for them as basically this whole, I don't know if it was their birthday or whatever it was, but it was like writing it for
Yeah,
your
gift
favorite
fix. Sure,
character,
sure.
Ludo Bagman.
You
And
love
the
this
story,
person. I made this for you.
Yeah, so
Okay.
here's the story. So Ludo, this is in his peak of Quidditch playing days, Ludo Bagman. He's playing for the Chudley Cannons, and he's the beater, and they're going to play the Wimborne Wasps.
Okay.
Or
I
no,
don't think that's-
reverse. He's
Okay,
playing
yeah, yeah.
against the Chudley Cannons. He's on the Wimborne Wasps.
Okay.
I know this. Ludo comes across a shady person in the player's tunnel, much like you had happen where you stabbed someone. He thought it was a fan that wanted a photo, and he was like, oh, do you want a photo? Sure. And this person's like, no, I'm a shady character, and I'm here to know if you want to gamble on the game. So this person says that
And
they
then
have
it's a dare PSA.
this person says that they have a lot of money riding on the cannons to win. And
Okay.
Ludo goes, well, that's not a smart decision because the Wasps
They're
are way
terrible.
better. We're going to kick your butt. All the odds are against them.
But you could throw it.
And that's basically
kid.
what that person says. They say precisely, I've bet a lot of money on them to win. You should throw the game and I'll throw some money your way. And Ludo goes, okay, because we learned from the narrator that Ludo got addicted to gambling after he visited the Muggle city of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Ludo, no.
I know.
This one's a little bit thinner of a backstory, I think.
Yeah.
The cursed backstory was a little richer.
Yeah, this was just one sentence. He went to Vegas once, and now he loves to gamble, which is the opposite of the one time I went to a casino in New Orleans, and
Okay.
after 5 minutes, I thought, I never want to do this again. Now, he asks how much money, because he is a bit enticed, and this person says 1,000 galleons, which
not
is
enough.
yeah, that's like
That's not
$7,000. I don't know how much the Quidditch team pays
Who
him,
knows?
but it's as
you
the
know,
narrator.
a wand costs 7 galleons. Who's to say what a galleon is?
No, it's nothing.
There it is.
Yeah, JK said it was like the pound, but then Brexit, the pound is worth nothing,
That was
right?
in the 90s, too.
Yeah, nothing matters. Money is money, whatever. It seems like a lot of money. 1,000, there's a comma there.
Oh, right.
And he says that Quidditch pays well, but not that well.
Oh.
So
How about just Quidditch pay?
I don't know.
Do they need a union?
I don't know, but there's only one sport. You would think they would pay them very
Right.
handsomely. But this person says, well, if the money's not enough to entice you, maybe this will be. And this person just has blackmail on Ludo Bagman.
Oh.
They have 3 photos, which of course are gifts, and it's all from like the same night. The first is him surrounded by a bunch of women on a velvet sofa in a nightclub. And Ludo goes, okay, whatever.
Sure.
And then it's him with a flask of like golden shiny liquid. And then he's like, all right, well, that could be anything. But then the third is him like taking a swig of it and stuff. And then Ludo's saying, well,
They're gonna know. Has he been cheating?
so what he
already?
tries to clarify is like, I only take it to get lucky on nights out. I never take it before a game.
Absolutely not. No, thank
not
you.
good. I only do it to reduce consent. It's okay.
Hey, bud. Hey, bud. That's gonna be a no. Do not do these things.
Ludo tries to say this, but the shady guy's like, look, no one's gonna believe you, so you might as well do this. And the guy says, especially because you've been playing really well lately. So then Ludo basically agrees out of fear. He starts to throw the game.
Isn't Ludo like a chaser?
He's a
Chasers-
beater.
Okay, he's a beater. Beaters definitely can't lose the game
So-
unless they injure the seeker.
So that's what I thought, and that's what I said. And even Ludo in the story points it out, but the guy's like, but beater is
'Cause-
perfect because then it's less obvious.
Quidditch is dumb.
It's a very bad, poorly made sport. Don't get me started. We don't have enough time to do all of that. But basically, Ludo just starts like hitting a bunch of people. His team gets super pissed at him. The other team ends up winning. And then
Oops.
it is like kind of sad at the end because he's like tries to apologize profusely to the team, but the team is like not having it. And the team already like they weren't like super buddy with him, and they just like completely just cold shouldered, don't talk to him at all. And then he's talking with the shady person after the game. The shady person's like, oh, well done. And Ludo's like, give me my money and leave me alone. And then the guy's like, oh, well, you could be done here, or at the next game, since we knew this worked, you could get 10,000 galleons. Oh. And then Ludo kind of like thinks, oh, maybe I'll do it. And then that's the end.
Cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger. Who's to say what happens?
Nothing good.
Probably not.
Nothing good to Ludo, actually.
Okay, what's your number 1 Ludo fanfic?
My number 1 Ludo fanfiction is the first and only tagged Ludo / McGonagall fic on fanfiction.net.
Oh, no!
Which it must not have been you based on the way you're reacting to that. Somebody
No, but, like,
suggested that ship to me, and I was like, this is a good ship. What is this?
I mean,
They both love
I'm kind of like
sports.
mad that I didn't think about it.
She's real
'cause, like,
straight-laced, and he's a loose cannon.
Right.
There's some story hooks there,
Mm-hmm.
probably.
I mean, she will bend the rules for certain Quidditch outcomes. She'll skirt around the rules to get Harry on the team.
Right? See, it's all there. This story isn't about that. Doesn't dig into any of those story hooks. This is a song fic.
What?
Which is bits of story interwoven with song lyrics.
I did this on one of my appearances on Fanatical Fics and Where to Find Them. It was about Toxic by Britney Spears.
Did we do that?
We did. It was about
That's
Toxic,
so
and it was a Harry
powerful.
Voldemort.
I have no memory of that.
It was a Harry Voldemort
I
with a little
listened to
bit of
my own
Ginny, like love
podcast?
triangle situation. It was a really good episode. Highly recommend.
No, this isn't a toxic. This is a song fic to Green Day's Good Riddance.
Ho, ho, ho! Yes, that's good.
And I was like, yes, good. This is great. Let's click on this.
On brand, of course.
And then it's about him breaking up with her when they were in school together. So they dated in school. He broke up with her. And then he's like, I'm still in love with you. And she's like, no, good riddance.
Man, McGonagall's age, if it wasn't even confusing enough with her, like, being old, and then the Fantastic Beasts movie, you're like, she's even older, but also whatever. Now this just like, how old is McGonagall? Will we ever learn?
She's an adult, and also Ludo's an adult, and all adults.
Well,
As kids know, all adults are about the same age.
I mean, it
This
sounds
was
about right.
okay. Come on, this is a song fic to Green Day's Good Riddance. This was written by an 11-year-old,
Of course.
and I'm here for them, and I love them.
Is there any other details from
No,
it, or is
it
that
is
just
so short. It is like almost 90% the song lyrics, and it's just like a couple sentences, and I was like, "This is so powerful. Thank you. This is all I ever want to see."
It's pretty good. It's kind of like how Pride and Prejudice and Zombies is like still 85% just Pride and Prejudice, which makes it really good. Like, honestly, when I was reading, I was like, I could do without the zombies. I should just read regular Pride and Prejudice. Okay, so the number 1 Ludo Bagman fanfic I found was actually really interesting because it stayed like pretty true to the story in The Goblet of Fire. Where, but it basically just has Ludo like actually matter, so kind of turning him from a red herring into like
interesting.
something that is like important.
Did you feel vindication?
I mean, truly,
when you read this?
I was feeling great. So in this fan fiction, they take it to the Goblet of Fire, and you see like before they do the Triwizard reveal in the goblet, you see that like Ludo actually writes Harry's name in, and like Ludo does all of it, not Barty Crouch and all that. And the reason behind it is because of all the gambling debt and stuff.
Right.
Voldemort like had talked to Rookwood, because Rookwood was the person who Ludo like knew and then was on trial for like maybe passing secrets to. So through Rookwood, Voldemort like figured out, oh, I can get this dude under my thumb. He's got gambling debts. He works for the Ministry. Perfect person.
This is a great motivation for all the weird stuff he does in that story. This is good. I like it.
So Voldemort gets to Ludo and is basically like, look, I can give you a bunch of money to get the gambling debt. All you got to do is get Harry in win. Right. Just make sure Harry wins. He knows that Ludo's going to judge it and stuff. And Ludo like has like a bit of a moral back and forth of like, oh man, should I actually do this? Should I not actually do this? I really am in this like bad debt. You know what? I'm just going to do it, and like kind of like turned a blind eye to it.
It's just one kid.
It's just I'm just gonna
fuck that kid.
I'm just gonna turn an eye, not worry about it, not gonna ask too many questions. So he does all of this. That's why he gives Harry the higher score and all of that. Facilitates all of that. We still see the same kind of things happen with like the goblins pressuring him and all that going on. And Ludo's like really distraught when he sees that Cedric dies, because he didn't know that was going to happen. Like he had no idea. So he's like got this like terrible thing, and it ends with him and Voldemort like paying him off, but Ludo wondering like, was it worth it?
Does Harry survive in this?
Yes, Harry does survive. Cedric still dies.
Just Cedric, man.
Well, what's interesting is that when I looked back at the title of this fan fiction, it was called Potterless by Mike Schubert. This was my fanfic of Ludo Bagman. What if he met her? What?
Such a compelling story.
And that's why I thought he was a bad guy. I thought this is exactly what I thought was going on. And when this wasn't it, and it was like, just kidding, Barty Crouch Jr.'s not dead. Like I said, he was dead. My fanfic is so much better than the fourth book. So much better. And that's my #1 Ludo Bagman fanfic. My own creations. Did you like pick up on that, or did you think I actually had found a fanfic?
Does it matter?
So now, with the remaining time, we can get into some fun Q&A.
Hold on there, Past Mike. Before we can get into Q&A, I want to take a quick little mid-roll break here for Wingardium Adredosa. Hello, this episode of Potterless is brought to you by me from the past and currently the present and maybe the future. This is a confusing way to say that if you go to patreon.com/Potterless, all of the Potterless content we ever posted on the Patreon is there, and it's available to you for just $4 a month. So you can join at the I Just Want the Potterless tier. You will see that the Patreon has been rebranded for the Noose Olympian, my Percy Jackson podcast, but you can still join that $4 a month Potterless tier, and that gets you access to every single thing we posted on the Potterless Patreon for like 5 years. Those are bonus episodes, director's commentary, live stream Q&As, other video content, lots of fun stuff. You get access to all of it. You could join, consume all the content, and then leave a couple days later. I don't care. You do whatever you want. Go to patreon.com/Potterless and check that out. We also still have digital Potterless merchandise over at potterlesspodcast.com/merch. That includes old live shows. That includes some digital things like wallpapers and ringtones and other sorts of goofy stuff. So you can go check that out as well. And just make sure you follow Potterless on social media, because every now and then we do cool things, whether I do another live show or I do something live streamed or I have a new episode up or I do LeakyCon or Enchanticon potentially next year. Lots of fun stuff going on. So just follow Potterless Podcast on Instagram, follow Potterless Pod on Twitter. Every now and then we're still doing stuff, so stay tuned there. So what's going on with the rest of this episode? We will have the Q&A section of the live show. And then after the Q&A section, we actually have a preview of another Harry Potter podcast that is being created by my friends, the Super Carlin brothers. They have a new podcast called Through the Griffin Door. So we've worked together a little semi-feed drop here where after the Potterless episode finishes, you will get to hear the first 30 minutes of their first big episode. So if you want to get a sense of what their podcast is, you can just listen all the way way through. And then if you like it, you can go check out their feed as well. And we just recorded an episode together. So at some point in the future, I will be a guest on this podcast, their first guest. So that's very exciting. So just wanted to give you the heads up here so that you know what is to be expected. And I'll also probably jump in again just so that it's not super jarring in case people skipped the mid-roll break. But enjoy the Q&A section. It's fun, and enjoy the rest of this episode. But before we get into the Q&A section, I'm going to take a quick little break for some ad reads. Some of them will be read by me. We have a sponsor going on right now called Arena Club. They do card trading stuff like Pokemon cards and sports cards and stuff. There's other sponsors that I will be reading the ads for. There are a different set of sponsors where I don't read the ads. Those are inserted locally. So if you live in a not English-speaking country, you might hear an ad read in not English. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back into the Q&A section of this live show of Potterless.
Oh, here's a good one because we're all about Ludo. Jillian asks, if Ludo was in the movies, who do you think should have played him? I think the only answer is Nathan Fillion, right? Right?
That's a good one.
Charming. I feel like the hair works. He does a good job of playing jerks.
Yeah, he needs to be kind of like an older guy, sporty, but not too sporty. I know who actors are, so
yeah, is there someone you would have picked for a Ludo casting?
Oh yeah, I'm saying a name right now that makes sense.
This is from Alex H. Have you ever thought about moving from children's novels to young adult novels with a winky emoji? I liked this question before I saw the winky emoji after it. My wife recently convinced me to read A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I really enjoyed it. I would love to see your reactions and stuff. Here's what I will say. I don't know if you've read this book. There seems to be a violent
No, I
reaction
think
in the
it's
crowd.
a little spicy. Is that really YA?
Oh.
Is that YA?
Maybe that explains the maybe that explains
okay.
the winky face that was in the email. But I'm just saying, I've got so much Rick Riordan stuff to read. I'm good. So I think I'm thankfully set.
Jackson.
I am enjoying it so much. It's a really good book series. Can't recommend it enough, especially listening to the companion podcast, The Newest Olympian. Okay, here's a fun one. If the Percy Jackson universe played a basketball game against the Harry Potter universe, who would you pick for a starting five for each side? So this is from Haley, a Ravenclaw, and Caroline, a Hufflepuff. We'll end the show here. P.S. Our husbands want to know what the pattern is on your shirt. This was sent during the first act. That was a seahorse sweater. So I have it in shirt form and polo form and bathing suit form. I am not sponsored by the company that makes them, so I'm not going to say their fucking name. But if they do, I'll say it instead. I've tried so hard to get sponsored by them. Most of my clothes, this shirt, these pants are also from them. Okay. They make good clothes that fit me well. It's
great.
easy for online shopping. I could be like, I know these fit. I know my size. I wait till they're on sale.
Oh yeah, definitely don't say their name now. You said too much nice stuff
I know.
about them.
I'll say so many nice things if you sponsor me. Unnamed clothing company. Now, 5-on-5 basketball. Percy Jackson versus Harry Potter. Before we even get into this, the Percy Jackson team is going to stomp the ever-living crap out of the Harry Potter team. They're going to be so bad.
They like actually have powers though, right? It's not just magic or whatever.
We gotta limit the magic.
Does the teamwork make the dream work? Is that what it is?
That is, I love saying that. It's true.
Oh, did I take?
No. Teamwork makes the dream work has always been a very fun one for me. When I worked in Papado Seafood Kitchen in the break room, they had a poster, and it was framed, and it was people rowing in a big crew boat, and it said teamwork makes the dream work. And I was like, that's good. I'm going to say on my future podcasts that I don't know exist forever. Now, basketball-wise, I mean, I feel like you should have Fred, George, and Ron because they're all tall. Being tall is good in basketball.
Okay.
Ron is even canonically in the books
Ron's
taller
tall.
than Fred.
I will say Ron is definitely
canonically
tall.
very tall.
Yes.
Hagrid also feels like a great selection.
Okay, well, yeah.
Very tall.
If you're gonna have adults against, is it all children?
It doesn't have to. I mean, that's where it can get messy because we can get like. We can have literal gods on the Percy Jackson team.
Yeah, that team would definitely win.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. I feel like we should go kids versus kids. That way we get away like teachers and Dark Lords. So we'll take Hagrid off. I feel like I would want to have Fred and George got that twin symmetry.
They are very good at the sport that they play, so that probably transfers.
They work well. You know, I feel like we could go with a full Weasley team. Right? Like we could have Ginny. She's very good at Quidditch. Sure. We could have Ron in there. We could have Charlie. He's good with dragons. Percy's the manager.
He'd be very good
He'd be great at that, bossing around his siblings. thriving role for Percy.
I love
So
this
yeah, I
Weasley
like
team.
full Weasley team. Arthur's in the crowd with a big sign,
He's
like cheering them
there
all
for-
on.
Yeah, Harry's there.
Bill is
Beautiful.
looking cool. Like,
Yes.
yeah, he could be
Bill
the
just-
cheerleader.
Bill is just there being handsome.
Being
Yep.
super cool and hot. Yes, great. Boom. Percy Jackson
Charlie's
team.
the mascot.
No,
We're doing great.
I think we need Charlie to. Maybe he is the mascot. He's in big dragon costume,
Uh-huh.
living his best life.
Uh-huh.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Molly knit them all their uniforms.
jerseys. Oh, no,
Pretty
I
good. Yeah, but they're like all wool, so they're like terrible for jerseys. Percy Jackson team. I feel like we need Percy Jackson. He knows enough about basketball.
Right.
He says he plays basketball, so
Oh,
he's going to
okay.
be on the team. I mean, you don't know as many of the characters, so it's going to be trickier. I mean, from who we know, I feel like Annabeth would be good. She's very quick. I would say Beckendorf seems like he would be very good. I think he's described as being tall, but he's like pretty
You
robust.
got a tall, a fast, knows basketball. This is shaping up to be a great
And then,
team.
similar to Fred and George, there's a twin. They're not twin brothers. They're just brothers.
Okay.
They're the Stolls, and they're children of Hermes. So they're like
Oh.
tricky and stuff.
Okay.
Which I think they're similar to. They'd
Some,
be a
like,
good counterpart to Fred and
Harlem
George.
Globetrotters kinda stuff.
Yeah, they could do cool tricks
Some
and stuff.
hijinks. Oh,
They'd be-
hijinks on both sides.
Yeah.
This is
I
going to
think
be
it'd
the
very
best
fun.
basketball game
Yeah.
ever.
So that would be a 5-on-5, and the Percy Jackson team would mop the floor with the Harry Potter team because, to quote Oliver Wood, "What's basketball?" Should have stopped Potterless right then and there. But give yourselves a round of applause for coming out to the show. And give it up to our lovely guests. We had Kelly, who I think Kelly's at the merch table if you want to get merch as well. Give it up to Kelly for being a great guest for Act 1. Give it up to Kim for being a great guest for Act 2. Shout out to everybody here at Metro Music Hall, from sound to hospitality. Everyone's been super nice and wonderful. So round of applause to them for making this all happen. Very glad that I could come back. Thank you guys all so much for coming out to the show. I'm going to clean up the mess that I made here on stage and then skedoodle back up because I have an episode of The Newest Olympian coming out in a couple of hours that I need to still work on because I've been moving all week. But you've all been wonderful. Thank you all so much. And I guess I got to do both of the sign-offs. So until next time, when I make a return to the land of bees, I'll say what they always say, which is that
the Potterless one? I know
I'm going to
this
do the
one.
Potterless. We'll wizard on, and I'll see you later. Thanks for coming out, everybody.
Hello, Editing Mike here once again. As I alluded to in the mid-roll break previously, now for the rest of the episode, you will hear a preview of the new podcast that is being created, ongoing right now by the Super Carlin brothers, big Harry Potter nerds, called Through the Griffin Door. They are doing a chapter-by-chapter deep dive all the way through the Harry Potter books. We have jokingly called it the opposite of Potterless, which I think is very fun, but it is still fun. It is still a good time, and I was a guest on it, so I will be there in the future. They do video versions on YouTube with a very nice setup, but they also have audio feeds as well. So this is a preview of the first 30 minutes of the podcast, and it's always fun hearing Harry Potter stuff from them. They do incredible deep dive stuff, and they are incredibly knowledgeable, but also still fun. So you get the goofs, you get the insight. This is a perfect episode to put in that preview of Through the Griffin Door, because one of the times I did something with the Super Carlin brothers, we did a supremely intense Ludo Bagman quiz on their YouTube channel where they just had these incredibly specific trivia questions about Ludo Bagman. So to have their preview be on this Ludo Bagman centric episode of Potterless, I think is destiny. So now I hope you enjoy the first 30 minutes of episode 1 of Through the Griffin Door. And if you like what you hear, you should listen to Through the Griffin Door wherever you get your podcasts or watch the video versions on YouTube. But now I will pass it over to the Super Carlin brothers.
Welcome, dear listeners, to a podcast that will transport you to a world of magic, mystery, and endless wonder. Join us as we step Through the Griffin Door, your one-way ticket to the enchanting universe of Harry Potter. I'm your host, Jonathan Carlin, and I'm thrilled to be guiding you on the spellbinding journey, chapter by chapter, through the pages of the wizarding world. But I won't be alone on this adventure. I've brought along my brother, Ben. Together, we're known as the Super Carlin Brothers over on YouTube.
We'll be delving into the captivating world of Harry Potter, exploring the characters, unraveling the mysteries, and discussing all of the hidden gems that make this series a timeless masterpiece.
In case you don't know us, we've both spent the last 11 years combing through this story, writing fan theories, filling in plot holes, hunting for hidden connections, and just living and breathing Harry Potter.
But you may be surprised to learn that in that time, neither of us has actually read through a hard copy of the book. We use them as references, of course, and the ebooks are valuable tools for our research, but we do almost all of our reading via audiobook.
Yeah, so part of why I'm so excited for this podcast is the fact that we are reading a hard copy of the book. We both got a brand new one. I'm already a few chapters in. I can tell you there is hardly a page I have not made notes on. Like, I cannot believe how many little details keep popping out at me, and I cannot wait to just dive into all of them.
Yeah, so whether you're a lifelong fan of the series or a newcomer discovering Hogwarts for the very first time, Through the Griffin Door aims to be a podcast filled with laughter, insights, and of course, endless Potter love.
So grab your wands, dust off your broomsticks, and join us as we unlock the secrets behind the Griffin Door. Let us begin our journey with the Philosopher's Stone, Chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived.
Oh man, I got chills a little bit.
Oh, I know. I was like a little bit nervous going through all that. Like we're really starting. I feel like we've been talking about it forever, and now we're like actually sitting down, recording the show.
We're doing the thing. I know it's been nervous excitement all day, which I think has been it's been really wonderful actually, because there are so many occasions in life where I have apprehension or anxiety based nerves, and this has been like all day. I've sort of like I've known it's almost like anticipation for like Christmas morning or something like that. Like it's like, oh my gosh, like it's actually happening. Today is the day. So I'm so excited to begin.
I know, yeah. We've been if you're watching us on YouTube, yeah, we've been building the set around us for the past couple of weeks. It's been really fun having the little pieces arrive and like finishing it out, and like we just got all the lighting situated this morning. We recorded everything, got a little test runs in, and now, and I know you were just reading the first chapter just before we sat down to record. Making notes.
Yeah, honestly, I know that you've been ahead of me really, like, and kind of delving into the story a bit further in advance than I have been, and I think like I've almost, in the same vein, I've almost been like wanting to hold on to diving into it for the first time properly, and like walking into episode 1 just as fresh as seemingly possible. So I have both read the chapter and have re-listened to it 2 times.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So you've really done a lot of The Boy Who Lived today.
Yeah, so I've spent some time with The Boy Who Lived, and honestly, like, I can't even tell you, like, it almost makes me emotional to talk about it in the first place. Like, just like those words put together, The Boy Who Lived, are just so vital and important. And like, we talked about it a little bit in episode 0, but like I can just so firmly go back to our childhood where me and you and our younger brother Tyler were all sort of like laid out on our parents' bed, and our dad like cracked the book open and started reading this story to us for the very, very first time.
I know, yeah, I do. I can still remember it. I was just sitting there and like wondering about like who did it, like who's trying to steal the stone, who's working with Voldemort, and it was like a really drawn out process because like we would get like 2 chapters a week, like one on Saturday night and one on Sunday night. And
exactly.
Then we'd have to come back next week to find out what happened. And maybe if it was a really short chapter, we'd get a little extra one. But our dad was really good about it. He's a professional newscaster, so he has like a very good delivery while reading and could do like some voices here and there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I mean, it was really just like a really joyous occasion, something that like and more than anything else, I would say it was like the thing, like the series in general is like what unlocked reading for me as a young kid. Like I almost felt like it had been reinforced to me that like reading was something that you were supposed to be aversive to, you know, like
like it's always just homework.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was never supposed to be like the fun thing that you got to do.
I know.
And I remember, obviously, eventually, I would like literally carry all of the books with me to school in my backpack.
Well,
so
you never knew if you might want to read all 7 books one day.
you never know. You never know. Just in case you cracked through it. So
I know. I do remember sometimes, like, in order to avoid doing homework, I would just read Harry Potter because in my mind it was like, well, I'm reading, so it's not like I'm doing something like, you know. I'm not like breaking the rules or anything. I can't. No one could scold me for reading.
It's like, what are you
surely.
doing up here? Reading books?
Yeah.
No, sir.
Just stop reading and do your homework. Like, see, that sentence doesn't make sense, does it?
Right. Yeah, no, of course not. So anyway, obviously we have a deep love for this story, for these characters, and especially and most importantly, the boy who lived.
The boy who lived. Yeah. So we've been trying to figure out exactly how we wanted to go through chapter by chapter here. And I think, you know, there were times we thought maybe we'd have like this is a section for foreshadowing. This is a section for characters introduced, and this will be a section for that. And like as I tried to like lay those out and like list them as we read through, it was complicated because so many things were like counted as so many things or were Easter eggs. So, and as I was going, it was like maybe the best way to do it is just literally almost go page by page, because there's not a page that I did not write on for things that like stood out to me in the book. So, I think maybe we can start each chapter, kind of give like, I think it would be fun also to review the artwork for each chapter because it's also kind of a little iconic.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll just give a breakdown of what happens in the very first chapter here as we enter the wizarding world. I can tell you that the first time I heard it, I had no idea what it was about at all. Like I didn't know magic was going to happen. Like when we eventually learned that Harry's a wizard, I remember being floored by that, despite the fact that wizards show up in the first chapter here and do magic. Like it didn't occur. Like I don't think they use the word wizard until Hagrid tells him he's a wizard, even though people are clearly doing unusual things.
Oh yeah, no, and it's even really fascinating on the whole that the story itself, you know, like because I know coming into and discovering Harry Potter, like I remember finding the book in our house for the first time and picking it up and being like, I don't really think I'm into magicians and sorcerers and, you know, things like that. Because, of course, you know, in the American copy was called the Sorcerer's Stone. And for the most part, almost nobody shy of the stone for which the sorcerer name comes from is ever referred to pretty much as a sorcerer. I think there's
right.
maybe one occasion where Dumbledore might be referred to as like the greatest
greatest sorcerer in the world or something. They have like, maybe it's like one of those titles the Ministry hands out,
right?
Like Gilderoy Lockhart has later on.
Yeah, of course.
Sorcerer Supreme. No, that's Doctor Strange. Wrong fandom.
Wrong fandom. There you go. But yeah, so chapter 1 does a lot of things. It's a fairly unique chapter on the whole, even within the realm of the Harry Potter saga. Even even in spite of the fact that it's the first chapter, but it's one of the very few handful of chapters that is not told through the perspective of Harry. Yeah.
Not only that, it is one of the I didn't even or it's one of those things I've noticed every single time I read this chapter, but like the reader are referenced in the first chapter, which is fairly unusual as the story unfolds. It also, like, a lot of times when you watch like the pilot episode of a TV show, there's a lot of like things that like that maybe they thought the characters were going to be like, but then clearly as things have unfolded, like maybe the entire world and story hadn't been fleshed out yet. So like things change, and I feel like there's a bunch of little examples of that, but at the same rate, there's a ton of examples of things that show up in like chapter 1 that go on to be incredibly important in like book 7.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or like, yeah.
Yep.
So there is a lot of setup, and there's a lot of like, we tried something and it went a different way.
Right. And one of the most miraculous things to me, I think, about it is that, like, almost right out of the gate, you get this great big mystery as to, like, why was Harry attacked in the first place and why was he capable of surviving that attack.
Yep.
And, you know, those are things that kind of continue to be mysteries for quite some time. But
yeah.
Anyway, so chapter 1 begins, and we get the introduction to the Dursleys, who are, of course, just seemingly
just the worst.
I think, like, you know, it's funny a little bit because as I read through it and you sort of like hear like how Mr. Dursley gets ready for work in the morning. Like, I think that there's a reference to the fact that he puts on like his most boring tie, which like is like one of those things where it's like you can't help but feel the bias of the narrator in this capacity, being like, well, certainly Mr. Dursley doesn't think it's the most boring tie in the world,
right? Or else does he? And it's just like he's going out of his way to be mundane.
Well, and that's the question, because you know, when you read you know, like as he's getting ready and you're sort of like, you know, getting like the lowdown on like who this family is and everything, like, you know, even his departure from the house, like, you know, he goes and kisses his son goodbye, and you know, like Dudley's kind of throwing like a tantrum, and he's like, oh, little tyke, you know. It's like,
yeah,
it's like, this is one of those things where it's like you can't really fault them for just being like non-magical. Like, you know, for the most part, like when you look at the Dursleys, at least, you know, for these first couple of pages, it's sort of like they are living their version of a happy life. You know, it's like,
right.
it's okay if it's not the version that you prefer, but it's like on some level, I'm like, are we being overly harsh on them too quickly when it seems like they just kind of like, you know.
Well, I think even before Harry arrives, it's pretty clear that they're not like super great. Like, I mean, even like it, like Petunia is introduced as like constantly listening in on the neighbors.
That's
and
true.
like
That's
the
true.
way in which Vernon is like judging the people dressed on the street and stuff like that, like just right away. It seems like they are very anti anything that is not regular.
Yes.
And not just like uncomfortable by it, but like actively going out of their way to like not like it or to be bothered by it almost.
right. Yeah, like anything out of the ordinary
Yeah.
is seen in a negative light from them. So I'm not here to grandstand and stand in defense of the Dursleys or anything like that. But like, you know, I'm reading like that first chapter and him kissing, you know, Dudley goodbye before he takes off for his day at work, and I'm like, that is how I left my house this morning. You
Right.
know, like I did do that exact same thing before I left. Sans the little tight comment, but. Otherwise, let's see here. Yeah, you do get to Grunnings, where of course Mr. Dursley sells drills, and I do think right away where you kind of get that feeling that maybe they're not the greatest is the line specifically says he yelled at 5 different people, he made several important telephone calls, and shouted a bit more. He was in a very good mood until lunchtime, and it's like
really just can't wait to get to work and start yelling at people.
I know, it's like this is like one of those things where in my mind I have no ability but to assume that anybody who shows up to work and has to use yelling as like a means to get the job done, it is either by absolute sheer necessity, like of the volume of the work environment, and yelling is just required to overtake what the otherwise noise of a loud space could be,
right?
Or this is somebody who is having their own like internal personal struggles that like needs to resort to yelling to feel some measure of control over the circumstance that they're in. It is an odd or foreign belief to me to imagine a world where somebody actually experiences joy through yelling. So that's pretty much as soon as I get to the point with it's like, okay, maybe Mr. Dursley, maybe Vern isn't the best.
Yeah, I know. So even before that, I want to like the very first sentence that really stood out to me as I'm reading through it reads, when Mr. and Mrs. Dursley woke up on the dull gray Tuesday our story starts, there was nothing about the cloudy sky outside to suggest the strange and mysterious things would soon be happening all over the country. Which I like the sentence so much because this is the one where it says where the dull gray Tuesday our story starts, like us, we the audience, we're all going together,
right?
Like you the reader are not referenced again as far as I know.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I don't know any other occasion where the narrator references you in any capacity. So that is a unique use of the word our.
That is a unique use of the word our right here. But I also think it's funny because I just looked it up because the day in question is November 1st, 1981. That's right. The Potters are attacked on October 31st, 1981 when Harry is a 1-year-old. So it says it's a dull gray Tuesday morning, and November 1st, 1991 is actually a Sunday. So it's just like right away, like that's just not the right day of the week. And you totally could have looked that up. And I don't know why it's wrong. But the fact that it's wrong, you wouldn't think it's like, yeah, whatever, just pick. I feel like to me, the reason Tuesday is chosen is because it's the most boring day of the week. It's like Monday is, of course, a terrible day because it's, you have to go back to work. But Tuesday is not even halfway through the work. At least Monday has the honor of being the start of the week. Tuesday is still at the front half of the week and boring. Like, no. So I think that's why that day in particular was chosen, but it's just not what day it was.
I know, yeah, which feels like one of those things that would have been easy enough to adjust up. But we'll of course see more of that in the future. I think we referenced this in episode 0 just a little bit, but sort of like obviously eventually as they're headed to Hogwarts on the Hogwarts Express each year in September, it's usually not even usually, it is always September 1st, which I think is also always a Sunday.
Yeah, because they always get there for the feast, and then the next morning is always Monday and the first day of classes.
Right, and it's like kind of like one of those like you know what,
yeah.
it's easier than trying to figure out how to have anything else. And there is something kind of like glorious and happy and exciting about like the September 1st being more of like a fixture rather than like a rotating.
Yeah, like something they have to deal, like, wizards don't have to deal with calendars, of course. Like, we just operate, we make our own days.
Exactly.
But like the fact that they get the day is wrong actually comes into play like 3 paragraphs later, where we're introduced to the first magical character of the entire series, Professor Minerva McGonagall in cat form, watching Privet Drive, and Mr. Dursley sees her as a cat reading a map, which, like, you don't think about it at the time, because when you're reading it the first time, you don't know that the cat is Professor McGonagall and that as a professor she works at Hogwarts and all of that nonsense. But as if you like scale it back, the fact of the matter is that it is described as being a Tuesday, November 1st. So this is well into the start of the school year, and it's just a Tuesday, and McGonagall is just skipping school. Just skipping class. Like, she should be teaching on this day. What's she doing? And I know it's really what I love so much about this tiny mistake is that it's like, you might think, well, sure, but Voldemort just fell the night before, so clearly, like, everyone was given the day off. Like, that's why there's a holiday. And yet that cannot be true, because McGonagall is there to confirm the fact that Voldemort fell with Dumbledore. So even if like someone at the school was the one giving her the day off under the belief that this had been true, that person would still have been Dumbledore because he's her boss.
Right.
So she wouldn't need to come to the house for confirmation from Dumbledore if she'd been given the day off because of the occasion. So I think that's really funny.
No, I mean, and it is like one of the age-old questions that we have going on here as well is simply like that the attack happens on Halloween night, so October 31st. This is, of course, like the entire next day that McGonagall is now present and sitting on the wall and watching over the Dursleys and trying to get confirmation that what they believe to be true is in fact true. And then, of course, it is not until that evening, I believe at midnight, when Hagrid ultimately delivers Harry to the Dursleys' front doorstep.
Right, so it's like, where was he all day?
Yeah, so Hagrid's missing day is sort of like one of these grand mysteries that sort of like isn't totally resolved. I mean, I suppose that there's something to be said for the fact that we know eventually in the story, diving way down the line, that Dumbledore does invoke some ancient magic in order to provide the protection that Harry has at the Dursleys' home, thanks in part to Petunia's relationship to Lily, and therefore, like, Voldemort cannot touch Harry while he is there. So it is entirely possible that what is happening here is a grand amount of instruction on the part of Dumbledore, who first went to Hagrid and assigned him this mission and told him to essentially tend to Harry for one whole day, while he was able to go through and do all of Dumbledore type things, which is essentially like seeing between the lines. What Dumbledore knows is that, like, Voldemort is not gone for good, and he knows right away.
He knows right away because he's already aware of the prophecy and stuff like that. So he's like already setting up for Voldemort's return, like as of this night already.
Yes,
he's ready for it. But there continues to be little things like this that like don't add up, because when Dumbledore eventually does arrive later that day, like he talks to McGonagall and he confirms with her that, it must have been Hagrid who told you I'd be here later on. And it's like, when did Hagrid tell McGonagall that he was coming to this address? Because McGonagall, when she sees Harry, it's clearly the first time she's seen him. And it's like, but Hagrid goes and gets Harry immediately and presumably has him the entire time. So when did Hagrid run into McGonagall and then McGonagall leaves to go meet up with Hagrid later? Like, it's like that.
You know, Jay. I mean, these are the really complicated questions. I mean, on that note, as long as you want to split hairs, the weatherman who's speaking in this particular
Jim
chapter,
McGuffin.
Yeah, Jim McGuffin, of course. Good trivia for you.
Yeah.
Also does claim that while he can't ensure something, he is sure that it will be a wet evening. I don't know about that, but it's not only the owls that have been acting oddly lately today. Let's see here. They have been. Let's see here. They've had a downpour of shooting stars. Perhaps people have been celebrating Bonfire Night early. It's not until next week, folks, but I can promise a wet night tonight. There we go. I got there eventually.
Also wrong.
Also wrong, because it's like there's no mention whatsoever of a light drizzle happening as McGonagall and Dumbledore and Hagrid are leaving baby Harry, who otherwise apparently is in the rain on the front doorstep all night.
I know. It's possible it starts raining later in the night, like 1 or 2 in the morning, which means they leave him out in the rain. Which is also not great for them. But before they even get there, let's see. There's a few other things that happened during the day. Oh, Bonfire Night. This is like an American versus like European thing. Like we don't have Bonfire Night.
We do not have Bonfire Night yet. So this is it's not something that registered, but it's a reference to Guy Fawkes.
To Guy Fawkes, and like if you ever see like V for Vendetta, it's like remember the 5th of November, which actually would be the next week because it is November 1st as he's saying that.
Yes, of course. Yep.
So that is accurate.
Right. And Guy Fawkes is in fact where Fawkes the Phoenix gets his name from.
Yes. So
is that same person.
Other little fun tidbit there. I also love that while Vernon is out at work during this day, this is one of the things that you maybe like skips by you when you're just listening on the audio, but like he overhears someone whispering about the Potters and they're like, yeah, their son Harry. And he's like, he's never even met his nephew. He wasn't even sure his nephew was named Harry. Could be Harvey or Harold or something. And I love that one of the names he tries to reassure himself with is Harold, as if Harry isn't just a nickname for people named Harold.
Yep. It's like we jokingly in office refer to him as Harold Potter all the time,
yeah.
As if we're just using like his long form name there.
Yep.
No, I think that's another great one. Although interestingly, there is the line about how the Dursleys had never met their nephew before, which is something that actually does hold up to the continuity pretty well, because at this point in time, the Potters would be in hiding. Because
that's true.
The prophecy does take place prior to the birth of both Harry and Neville, the two people that the prophecy could in fact refer to.
Although, now that you mention it, doesn't Lily in her letter to Sirius mention like a vase or something that came from Petunia?
Yes, that is in fact a thing.
Right,
so,
and they're in hiding at that point?
Well, somehow, some way, Petunia must have had
Well.
special circumstances.
Well,
or otherwise, maybe Petunia is best friends with Peter Pettigrew, which somehow seems possible.
Because he's dating Pierce Polkus's mom, right?
Yeah, naturally. Yeah. We have an entire rap
about that.
Yeah, about how Peter Pettigrew possibly has a child, and it is one of Dudley's friends. Piers Polkus.
Yep.
We'll come back to that here, I think, in the next couple of chapters as well. Other really cool moments that we do have inside of this chapter are, of course, the line from Dumbledore where he says, "I would trust Hagrid with my life."
Oh, yep.
This is like one of those things where I think it establishes very early on in the story the fact that Dumbledore does not practice some of the same prejudices that you may expect within the wizarding world, even though at this point in time, we don't know that much about Hagrid at all.
No, we don't. Other than that, McGonagall is like, she seems to be less trustful of Hagrid in this moment.
Yes. And this is kind of like one of those interesting things where the trust that Dumbledore does bestow on Hagrid is kind of interesting, and also it could be argued unexplained, as the Fantastic Beasts series was coming out, and beasts were so at the forefront and center of the conversation.
Yeah.
And we knew that at some point in time in that saga, we would cross over into when Hagrid would have had his time, of course, at school. We kept operating under the belief that at some point in time, Hagrid is going to have to show up and be relevant to how Gellert Grindelwald is ultimately
you'd think
defeated.
so.
And we don't ever get that ultimate explanation.
Yeah, because the final duel between Dumbledore and Grindelwald happens in 1945, and by that point, Tom Riddle has been expelled or has unleashed the basilisk in the Chamber of Secrets.
And Hagrid
has been expelled. So
yeah.
at some point, like Hagrid has already been like at least a relevant student to Dumbledore at that point.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And because he's good with Beasts, and he immediately hires him back, you'd think he had to have shown up in the Fantastic Beasts movies.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So what our standing theory there is as to why Dumbledore has always had such trust in Hagrid is that Hagrid must have done something so that showed such support for the man himself that Dumbledore was like, if he supported me then, he will support me always, and I will have the undying faith in this person in that regard. However, again, that's all speculation because we never actually get a full blown explanation for it.
We do not.
But I do love that it establishes very early sort of like what Dumbledore's position is going to be, kind of all throughout. That does remain true. The other really amazing kind of piece that you and I both have observed and loved about this particular chapter is the prominence of three characters in particular, all of whom play absolutely vital roles to Harry during his sort of like formative years, which is, of course, Rubeus Hagrid, Albus Dumbledore, and mention of Sirius Black.
There is, yeah, which is really interesting because I think those are it sounds like those are the first three people Harry has contact with after the attack.
It is,
right?
yeah, yep.
So Sirius shows up. So the Potters are attacked. Sirius shows up to the house, and he's holding Harry. That's when Hagrid shows up and says, "Give him to me." And then Hagrid has him presumably all day, apparently talks to McGonagall at some point and tells him he's going to Privet Drive that night.
Apparently.
But apparently, who knows? But then later, Hagrid hands him directly to Dumbledore. So it goes from Sirius to Hagrid to Dumbledore, which is, this is like one of the craziest details ever. But a couple years ago, Ben and I got invited out to London to visit the British Library, where they had this history of magic exhibit on display, and it had just like all of like the history behind all of the things you hear about in the wizarding world. And by far the coolest thing they had there was this thing called the Ripley Scroll, which was this like 23-foot long scroll, right?
It's like a massive piece of like parchment that is like beautifully like illustrated and is essentially or supposedly the actual formula in order to create the Philosopher's Stone,
right?
Like the real thing. So not to get too far ahead in our story here, but Nicholas Flamel is a actual real life human being who lived, I think, in the 14 or 1500s, and had supposedly, and of course unconfirmed, created or sought to create the Philosopher's Stone.
The Philosopher's Stone, which can turn metals into gold and gives you the elixir of life.
Yes, and one of the most remarkable elements, just to bring us back to Hagrid, Sirius, and Dumbledore here, is that like the final like three ingredients visible on the actual Ripley scroll. Again, this is not like manufactured for the wizarding world. This is a real historical artifact,
right? Of people trying to actually practice alchemy and literally create the Philosopher's Stone,
right? And so the last three ingredients are visualized as a red orb, a black orb, and a white orb that come together to create what you ultimately have is the Philosopher's Stone.
Right.
And what is unbelievable about this, and the moment that we saw it, I mean, like you and I both, our jaws just kind of like hit the floor because we're like, wait, Rubeus means red.
Yeah. And
Albus
means white.
And Sirius black. Gives you those three stones. Those three men are arguably the closest to surrogate father figures for Harry, and they're the ones who, through his life kind of forge him into the man that he becomes, which sort of brings you to this argument that like Harry, who ultimately will eventually become Master of Death, is sort of equating to the elixir of life, and Harry, who is so frequently throughout the story embodied by the color gold.
Right.
It's like these three people come together, the red, black, and white, to create the Philosopher's Stone, which is
Harry. Right. So it's called the Philosopher's Stone, and there's a physical object in the book called the Philosopher's Stone, but Harry is the Philosopher's Stone.
Yes.
Like it's so easy to just like the Philosopher's Stone ends up sort of just being like a MacGuffin by the end of the story. It's like it doesn't come into play anymore, but it's like that's because it's not really about the stone. It's because Harry himself is about the stone. Not only is he constantly represented by the color gold, like when they make the Polyjuice potion for Harry later on, it turns gold. His wand shoots golden fire. He chases the golden snitch. But the other half of it is that it gives you the elixir of life so that you can't die. And Harry literally comes back from the dead.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and is in fact master of
it's like,
death,
it's like really, it's set up right from the beginning, especially if you know about the Ripley scroll, that like he's attacked and then boom, right away, red, black, white are the first 3 people who physically touch him.
Yes.
And it's like, that's crazy that it's set up so perfectly like that. And it's like, and it's just cool because like, this is like Hagrid just mentions like, oh, got enough young Sirius Black. And it's like, oh yeah, that's just some off-page character. Probably don't need to worry about him. It's
Right,
like,
right,
oh, wait
yeah.
a minute. Like that I think is the number one detail when you reread the books again after you've read it the first time. You're like,
It's like, no way. Because I mean, that's the thing. Like, now at this point in time, I suspect that if you're listening to this podcast, you too have combed through these books over and over and over again, and maybe have like every time you see it exactly what it means. But like when we were kids reading through this for the very first time, like Sirius Black didn't remain in the back of my mind for years and years and years. So like when you hear his name again in Prisoner of Azkaban, it's not like you're not like being like, like the one with the motorbike. Like not at all. You've long forgotten at that point. It's been 3 years since you've read those words.
That was the page. I mean, it'd be the same as trying to remember Daedalus Diggle, who also gets name drop here in the first chapter.
Yes, he sure does. Yeah, we eventually go on to learn is in fact, of course, a member of the Order of the Phoenix, and will eventually be the one to escort the Dursleys to safety.
Yeah, so it's funny that he gets mentioned so early. What's funny about that is that McGonagall thinks it's Daedalus Diggle who's doing the shooting stars down in Kent. He never had much sense or whatever.
Oh yeah, right.
What I think is so funny about that is she's telling Dumbledore about this, and like McGonagall surprisingly was not a member of the First Order of the Phoenix.
It is surprising
in the First Wizarding War, but she wasn't. Daedalus Diggle was.
Right.
So she's like sitting here like telling Dumbledore like, oh, probably Daedalus Diggle. Meanwhile, Dumbledore's like, I'm the leader of a secret society fighting Voldemort, and that's one of my members. So, so let me tell you, Minerva, why weren't you in class today?
Someone playing hooky.
Someone playing hooky. Were they playing cat? Were they?
Hey, Editing Mike here again. That was the first 30 minutes of the first episode of Through the Griffin Door. If you liked what you heard, you should go check out Through the Griffin Door wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch the video versions on YouTube. But that is the conclusion of this episode of Potterless. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of Potterless. Potterless is created by Mike Schubert. It is hosted by Mike Schubert. It is edited by Mike Schubert. It is produced by Mike Schubert. And it was also helped to be produced by all of the people who supported on Patreon over the years. You can still support the show by going to patreon.com/Potterless. You'll get access to all the stuff we ever posted for just $4 a month. That's very fun over at patreon.com/Potterless. We still have digital merch over at potterlesspodcast.com/merch. We still do live shows like that New Orleans show at potterlesspodcast.com/live. So lots of fun stuff going on. Check us out on social media. Check me out. We're doing my other podcasting things, the Newest Olympian, my Percy Jackson podcast, Meddling Adults, which is a charity game show podcast where we do children's mysteries like Scooby-Doo and Encyclopedia Brown. There's Horse, my basketball comedy podcast about the NBA and the WNBA. We're covering the Olympics right now. It's very fun. And then there's Modern Muckraker, a scripted show that I made that was very fun and goofy and silly, and I'm very proud of it. So lots of stuff going on. If you want to find me on social media, I'm Shub17 on Twitter and Instagram. My website, schub.es, has all the stuff that I've got going on. And I just want to thank you for listening to this, and I hope that you stick around because I'm going to try to post more episodes more frequently than I have been, but I was busy because Kelly and I had a baby. That's news that I don't know if I've said on the podcast yet. So yeah, we had a baby. That's cool, but made me very busy. But now things are easing up. So that's all going on. Thank you all so much. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening. And people who still find the podcast new and tell people about it, or people who came to LeakyCon stuff I did. Super fun all around. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much for listening. And until we cross paths again, as they say in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Wizard on!